The Lunar Research Station's observation deck offered the best view of Earth that Cassandra Reed had ever seen. The blue marble hung suspended against the void, peaceful and serene, completely unaware of the message she'd just decoded. Her hands trembled as she reviewed the alien transmission one more time. "Dr. Reed?" Director Harrison's voice made her jump. "You said this was urgent." Cassandra tucked a strand of auburn hair behind her ear, a nervous habit she'd never managed to break. "Sir, I've confirmed it. The signal we received 3 days ago, it's not random cosmic noise. It's a language." Harrison's weathered face remained impassive, but his eyes narrowed. "You're certain?" "Absolutely." Cassandra pulled up the holographic display, showing intricate patterns of light that pulsed in regular intervals. "It follows consistent grammatical structures. More importantly, it's getting stronger. Whatever's sending this, it's getting closer." As if on cue, the station's proximity alarms began to wail. Through the observation window, space itself seemed to tear open, revealing a massive vessel that dwarfed anything humanity had ever built. Its surface rippled like liquid mercury, reflecting the stars in mesmerizing patterns. "My God," Harrison whispered. The ship's arrival triggered chaos throughout the station. Security teams scrambled to battle stations, scientists rushed to gather data, and administration struggled to contact Earth. But Cassandra stood transfixed, watching new patterns emerge in the transmission. "They're requesting communication," she announced, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "And, they're asking for me specifically. They know I decoded their message." Before Harrison could respond, a beam of silvery light enveloped Cassandra. She felt a curious tingling sensation, then found herself standing in a vast chamber unlike anything she'd ever seen. The walls seemed alive, shifting with patterns of light that mimicked the ship's external surface. "Welcome, Cassandra Reed of Earth." The voice seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. A figure emerged from the shifting walls, tall, elegant, and distinctly feminine. Her skin had a metallic sheen, and her eyes held the depth of galaxies. "I am Queen Nixis of the Stellarian Empire. You have impressed us with your quick mastery of our basic communications." Cassandra swallowed hard, her xenolinguist training kicking in. "Your Majesty, I'm honored. Though I must admit, I've barely scratched the surface of your language." Nixis's laugh was like crystal wind chimes. "Such modesty. You've done in days what most species take years to accomplish. It's exactly why we chose your station for first contact." "Chose?" Something in the Queen's tone set off warning bells in Cassandra's mind. "Indeed. We've been watching Earth for some time, studying your species. Humans possess unique qualities that interest us greatly." Nixis glided closer, her movement unnaturally smooth. "Your adaptability, your creativity, your remarkable ability to understand and manipulate complex systems, they're quite valuable traits." Cassandra took an instinctive step backward. "Valuable for what?" "For survival, dear Cassandra." Nixis's smile remained pleasant, but her eyes hardened. "The Stellarian Empire faces challenges. Our society has grown stagnant. We need fresh perspectives, new ways of thinking. Your species could provide that. We'd be happy to establish diplomatic relations. Cassandra began, but Nixis cut her off with a wave. "Oh, we're well past diplomacy. You see, you've already proven my point. Your quick mastery of our language shows exactly what humans are capable of. Which is why we'll be taking control of Earth and its colonies. For your own good, of course." Horror dawned as Cassandra realized the truth. She wasn't here as a diplomat, she was here as proof of concept. Her success in decoding their language had just given this alien queen all the justification she needed to subjugate humanity. "We'll resist," Cassandra said, her voice low but firm. "How charming." Nixis signaled to unseen attendants. "But ultimately futile. Don't worry, you'll have a privileged position in the new order. After all, you're the one who helped make it possible. As guards materialized to escort her away, Cassandra caught a glimpse of Earth through one of the ship's viewing ports. The blue marble looked so small, so vulnerable. What had she done? And more importantly, what could she do to fix it? The last thing she saw before being led away was Queen Nixis sending a transmission to her fleet. First contact had been achieved, and conquest would soon follow. Cassandra's privileged position turned out to be a gilded cage in the heart of the Stellarian flagship. Her quarters were luxurious by any standard, walls that shifted to display any scene she desired, furniture that adapted to her exact specifications, and automated systems that catered to her every need. But the subtle force field at her door reminded her that it was still a prison. 3 weeks had passed since Queen Nixis's revelation. 3 weeks of watching helplessly as the Stellarian fleet positioned itself throughout the solar system. Earth's governments were in chaos, trying to decide between resistance and capitulation. The Queen had been clever, using Cassandra's presence to prevent immediate military action while she deployed her forces. Your morning data review, honored guest. Captain Lasara entered, her metallic skin gleaming with subtle purple undertones that Cassandra had learned indicated respect. Unlike many Stellarians, Lasara treated her as more than just a clever pet. Thank you, Captain. Cassandra accepted the crystal tablet, scanning the carefully curated news from Earth. I see the Australian government has agreed to Stellarian terms. Indeed. They're quite practical, you're Australians. Lasara's expression shifted, her skin patterns displaying concern. Though perhaps not everyone shares their wisdom. There are rumors of resistance movements forming. Cassandra kept her face neutral, but her heart raced. Oh. That seems foolish, given the Stellarians' technological superiority. Admiral Varys shares your assessment. Lasara's voice dropped lower. She's advocating for more, decisive action against potential rebel strongholds. This was new. Admiral Varys. I don't believe I've heard of her. Lasara's skin rippled with patterns that Cassandra interpreted as discomfort. She commands our military forces. While Queen Nixis prefers subtle manipulation, the Admiral believes in direct action. They disagree on many things. Political division among the Stellarians. Cassandra filed that information away carefully. I hope they can resolve their differences peacefully. As do we all. Lasara moved to leave, then hesitated. Dr. Reed, be careful what you say to others. Not everyone views humans with the same curiosity as our Queen. Admiral Varys, for instance, sees you as a threat to be contained. After Lasara left, Cassandra paced her quarters, mind racing. She'd spent weeks studying Stellarian culture through observation and careful questions. Their society was matriarchal, hierarchical, and ancient, but perhaps not as unified as they pretended. A chime announced another visitor. This time, it was Queen Nixis herself, her presence filling the room like mercury poured from a jar. My dear Cassandra, I trust you're comfortable. The Queen's voice held genuine warmth, which made her all the more dangerous. Very, Your Majesty. Though I admit I miss having work to do. Nixis smiled. Actually, that's why I'm here. We're having difficulty with some of Earth's regional leaders. They respect you. Perhaps you could help, persuade them to see reason. You want me to convince them to surrender? Cassandra kept her tone carefully neutral. To accept guidance, Nixis corrected. Surely you've seen how much we can offer your species. Technology, knowledge, protection, all we ask in return is cooperation. And complete submission to Stellarian rule. Such a harsh word, submission. Nixis sighed. We prefer to think of it as evolution. Your species has such potential, but you need direction. Structure. The same structure that has kept our empire prosperous for millennia. Before Cassandra could respond, an aide materialized, skin patterns flashing urgent messages. Nixus's expression hardened. It seems Admiral Varys has taken matters into her own hands. She's launched an attack on military installations in what you call North America. The Queen's eyes fixed on Cassandra. Help me prevent further bloodshed. Show your people the wisdom of peaceful cooperation. Cassandra felt sick. She was being asked to become a collaborator, to help enslave her own species. But perhaps playing along would give her access to information she needed. What would you have me do? Nixus's smile returned. Simply speak to them. Share your experience with us. Show them that resistance is unnecessary when cooperation offers so many rewards. As the Queen outlined her plans, Cassandra noticed something curious. Whenever Admiral Varys was mentioned, Nixus's skin patterns showed not just anger, but fear. The mighty Queen was afraid of her own military commander. That night, alone in her quarters, Cassandra reviewed everything she knew. The Stellarians were advanced, but divided. They feared humanity's potential even as they sought to harness it. And now she was being given a platform to speak to Earth's leaders. She thought of an old quote, "Give me a lever long enough and a fulcrum on which to place it, and I shall move the world." Maybe she'd just been handed her lever. The question was, how to use it without getting everyone killed in the process. As she drifted off to sleep, news reports showed the devastation of Admiral Varys's attack. Tomorrow, she would have to make a choice, become a true collaborator, or find a way to turn these alien queens against each other. Either way, the fate of humanity would hang in the balance. The command center of the Stellarian flagship erupted into chaos as Cassandra's broadcast reached every screen, every neural interface, and every communication device in the fleet. Admiral Varys's own words, her plans for mass destruction, played on an endless loop, accompanied by tactical data that Lysara and other sympathetic officers had provided. This is treason. Varys's voice boomed through the chambers, her normally metallic skin darkening to a stormy gray. Find the source of that transmission and terminate it immediately. But it was too late. The broadcast had already reached Earth, the colonies, and every Stellarian vessel in the system. More importantly, it had reached the High Council. Queen Nixus stood motionless in the center of the command room, her expression unreadable as she watched the evidence of her military commander's planned atrocities. "Admiral," she said finally, her voice cutting through the chaos like a blade, "explain yourself." "My queen, everything I planned was for the Empire's survival." Varys straightened, her bearing proud despite the accusation. "These humans, they're not just resistant to control, they're infectious. Their ideas spread like a virus through our ranks. They must be crushed decisively, or they will destroy everything we've built over millennia. By massacring civilians." The Queen's skin rippled with patterns of disgust. "That is not our way. Our way is failing." Varys snapped. "While you play diplomatic games, humans are infiltrating our systems, corrupting our youth, making us question traditions that have served us for countless generations. They must be stopped." Cassandra, watching through the ship's internal monitoring system from her makeshift command post with Lysara, saw her opportunity. She opened a channel to the command center. "Permission to address the Queen," she said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. The room fell silent. Queen Nixus's eyes narrowed, but she nodded. "Speak, Cassandra Reed. You've certainly earned that right with this impressive display of initiative. Your Majesty, Admiral Varys is right about one thing, humanity is changing the Stellarian Empire. But change doesn't have to mean destruction. You sought us out because your society had become stagnant. You recognized that you needed something new. We sought to guide you, to control you," Nixus countered. "And how has that worked out?" Cassandra allowed herself a small smile. "In just a few months, humans have learned your language, adapted your technology, and formed alliances with your own people. Imagine what we could accomplish as true partners instead of subjects. Before Nixis could respond, Varys made her move. Enough of this. She raised her hand, revealing a neural controller. If you won't protect our empire, my queen, then I will. The device activated, sending waves of energy through the ship's neural network. Screens flickered, lights dimmed, and several Stellarian officers collapsed, their neural implants overloaded. But nothing else happened. Looking for this? Lysara's voice came over the comm as she held up the central processing core of the neural control system. Some of us chose to have our implants removed. Another thing we learned from the humans, sometimes progress means letting go of old technologies, old ways of thinking. Varys's face contorted with rage. She drew her weapon, aiming it at Nixis. You've doomed us all with your weakness. The queen stood her ground, her skin displaying not fear but a complex pattern that Cassandra had never seen before. Was that amusement? Admiral, your dedication to the Empire is admirable, Nixis said softly. But you've failed to understand what made us great in the first place. We didn't build this empire by destroying those who were different. We built it by adapting, by taking the best of what we found and making it our own. The queen's skin began to shift, displaying patterns that resonated with every Stellarian in the room. I admit, I initially saw humanity as a resource to be controlled. But they've shown us something far more valuable, a mirror in which we can see our own potential for growth. Pretty words, Varys snarled, but they don't change the fact that I have a weapon, and you don't. Actually, came a new voice, as Director Harrison stepped through a hidden portal with a squad of human and Stellarian soldiers. That's not quite accurate. Cassandra smiled. Her old boss had played his part perfectly, arriving exactly on schedule with the joint human-Stellarian security force they'd been quietly assembling. As Varys was taken into custody, Queen Nixis turned to address both her people and the humans watching through the ship's communication system. Perhaps, she said, it's time for all of us to learn a new way forward. Not as conquerors and subjects, but as allies who can teach each other. It wasn't a complete victory, there would still be hard negotiations ahead, treaties to be written, trust to be rebuilt. But as Cassandra watched the Queen extend her hand to Director Harrison in a very human gesture of partnership, she knew something momentous had shifted in the galaxy. The Stellarian Empire would never be the same. And neither would humanity.